Okay, we are good.
All right. We are live with the new rebranding. Bye bye, Beach Boys.
R.I.P.
RIP. We are now on to Bitcoin and beyond.
You know, it's a little bit of a bummer to relinquish the name, but
It was a good pun.
I'm actually more bummed out we have to change this logo. That's actually the thing I'm most bummed out about. But
Yeah. We're going to have to, I don't know. I don't know what we'll do about that logo.
yeah, if anyone listening wants to do a logo for us, we'll pay you in BSV.
Yeah.
But otherwise, we'll probably try and find the same artist because I like his style. It's a cool style.
Yeah.
But
yeah, if anyone's willing to do some freelance work for us, yeah, it's artistic. It has any ideas with Bitcoin and beyond too.
yeah, but I think the theme is good, right? Because it gets into all of the stuff we learned in London.
Right. Very futuristic, I guess.
Should we just start with a recap of what London was like?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, because we haven't done a show since, but, you know, just to plug all of our interviews that we had, people should go check it out on our playlist.
Yeah, actually, CoinGeek wrote an article about it, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty sweet.
They linked to the podcast or the playlist that you made of all the videos that we have. And yeah, pretty good stuff. We had a lot of good discussions, conversations. I think they're also different, but I actually really enjoyed. Obviously, I like the two we did with Craig. Those were interesting conversations. But I really, really like the one we did with Ryan, Charles, and Jason Chavanez from Memo.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a good one.
But I'm only bummed that we turned off the recording, and then we had that whole conversation. Like, I do wish we had like an hour-long conversation after we turned off the mic, and like it actually ended up being a really interesting conversation, and then we didn't record it. So I was a little bummed out about that. But
yeah,
other than that, we got a lot of good stuff. But maybe we can just walk through the whole week, right? So the whole like we got in, was it Monday morning London time, right?
Yeah, Monday morning was brutal.
We went straight to a pub.
Yeah,
pretty
tried
much.
to rally. Yeah,
And got some shepherd's pie, which was
yeah,
solid.
it was delicious. It was delicious shepherd's pie.
And then we went around the entire city of London trying to find a cable to do live. It's a whole thing. We needed an adapter to do this live recording that weren't expected to do. CoinGeek was nice enough to help us with getting a camera. And we'll apologize in advance because we're clearly just two amateur jerks.
Yeah.
We had no idea what we were doing. We ended up getting an adapter, right? So anyway, we walked around the entire city of London, got to see a lot of it, found the adapter. Well, no, we didn't find the adapter. We had to order off Amazon. Not a big deal.
Came in perfect timing, though.
It did. It was perfect, yeah.
It's like Wednesday during lunch saved us for afternoon, couple afternoon interviews.
Yep. And then Monday night, we went out with Lorian Gamaroff and the Handcash team, Alex Agut and Rafa Jimenez. And that was awesome. I thought that was great. Lorian is a good guy, and he showed us he showed us around a few pubs, right? He kind of seemed like the local.
Yeah.
And so, but that was what I really liked about that experience was it was interesting getting two different wallet perspectives. You know what I mean? Like it was like these two perspectives of like, okay, they're both building wallets. They're both in a way competitors. They're both cooperating because they're both funded by N-Chain. They both kind of have the same goal in mind. So it's kind of interesting because they had these different perspectives, and seeing them talk things out was really interesting. But just overall, I will say Lorian was awesome. I really liked hanging out. We hung out with him for a while before Alex and Rafa came.
Yeah.
So if he does listen to this, Lorian, thank you that was a fun night. So appreciative of all that. Yeah, that was Monday night, right? That was Monday. We had a good time. It was fun.
And Alex and Ralph are cool too, so I don't want people thinking just Lori. But
Absolutely.
but yeah,
absolutely.
we know Alex. I think like we knew Alex a little bit better, I guess, before the weekend though. So
Yeah.
we'll have to bring Lorian on sometime.
Yeah. Sempe, because Sempe had a lot of interesting announcements, which if you are curious about some of them, you can watch the interview we did with him. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And yeah, so that was a fun night. That was cool. That was we weren't expecting to do any of that, and then it just kind of happened, and we did it, and it was fun. Right. So then Tuesday, I'm blanking until the night. I can't remember exactly what we did Tuesday.
Tuesday, we just kind of walked around London, got a bunch of different shots, which we'll be posting like a vlog later on, I think, just like a mashup of a lot of the different interviews that we did. Like, we're kind of putting that together now, just trying to pull a bunch of big quotes. So hopefully that vlog will be coming out soon. But yeah, Tuesday, we kind of just walked around London, checked things out.
Oh, dude, I had the best fish and chips. I forgot about that. That's what I did Tuesday.
Oh, yeah.
You missed out on that. That was amazing.
Yeah.
Best fish and chip place apparently in the world, allegedly. I don't know.
Oh, wow.
Can't remember the name. But then Tuesday night we took it upon ourselves, put together a crew.
Yeah. Yeah, that was fun.
We tweeted out just saying to meet us at a bar, and there was probably over 20 people there that showed up.
Yeah.
Made it to an Irish pub, and we, that was a good time. Ryan Charles was there. God, everyone.
Brendan Lee.
So many people were there. I don't even want to start naming people because I'm going to leave people out. But there's a lot of people there. We had a good time, and I guess that maybe gets into the whole theme, right? The whole theme. So it was Monday that we were walking around where CoinGeek announced that they were going to end the hash war, right?
Yeah.
And
publicly end the hash war.
That took us by surprise, right?
Yeah, well, yeah. I think it took me a little bit by surprise. I didn't... Looking back on it, I kind of know what the intentions were now, I think. But...
Well, I'm still confused. Because even there are some tweets now from Calvin that don't seem to fully... here's what I would say. The hash war is over when replay protection is implemented. So they announced that they would implement replay protection, but it's not going to be implemented for another couple months. So, allegedly. That's when I would say it's over. I think the rest of this is posturing, and I don't want it to be over, but I guess we're all just accepting that there's a split now. That is the kind of the accepted thing, right?
Right. Which, back to initially we were kind of taken by surprise. But then, talking to the Hand Cash guys and Centbee and these guys that have businesses on top of Bitcoin SV, it was interesting hearing their opinion on it because it sounded like they were there was a sense of relief that, finally we can just move away one direction. All this headache with, 2 chains and everything. Lorian was talking about how much support he had to provide for people and people complaining left and right about their money. It just sounded like a headache overall. And, there was a sense of relief throughout the whole week, I would say, of just okay, Bitcoin SV is Bitcoin. And now we're just going to move forward with it. And ABC can continue to experiment with Bitcoin Cash. It is what it is. And we'll let the market decide.
Yeah, and I think that's a whole conversation. I guess let's avoid getting into that whole... Let's just say that's what happens, right? So we're there, and it's announced that we're going to just accept that BSV is a new coin, and there's a permanent split. We're just going to somehow now accept that there's a permanent split, which, whatever, fine. So that's what happens. But then I guess the point I'm trying to get at is that Tuesday night when we were all hanging out, I think in any other context I would have been at home bummed out, right? That was kind of, I had a conversation with someone that's what they said. They were like, well, this is actually a really good thing that the conference is right then, because if I was sitting at home and I just read, hey, the war is over, we're going to split again, it would have pretty much bummed me out, right? Because out of all this stuff, I just didn't want to split,
Yeah, yeah.
But then as we're all there hanging out, I think like what was really relieving is that there was for the first time, I felt like there was like a common shared set of principles, like of we're going to just put Bitcoin back to the way it was. We're going to stop changing it. And then everyone else is like just allow people to build on top of it. And like that core principle was like agreed upon. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was like really good. I thought that it was for the first time, I felt like I was like, it was actually pretty interesting because like all the things that we rant about together, it's like everyone else was doing the same thing. Everyone like was on the same page. Everyone agreed on everything. And
that was one thing. Yeah, that was weird. Like everything that we ran about, everyone was like, yeah, exactly. Like it was nice to like finally talk to people that like
got it.
Yeah. Or that we were on the same kind of wavelength with, you know.
Yep. So that was awesome. I guess like we'll just move forward as to like maybe what the whole week was about, but I do want to say like every conversation I had the entire week was awesome. Like we went out every night and you met more and more new people. It was like one of those things where like I was definitely bummed out come Friday night, Saturday morning, where it was like, oh man, like this is over, because it was really cool to be surrounded by so many people that were agreeing on the same thing, and we all just like had this shared common set of principles of like, let's get Bitcoin, let's lock it down. We all agree that Bitcoin works, which I think was the other part of it. Was like everyone was like, how about we try this thing out? How about we see if this thing works, and then we'll like go on from there, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, that was the Tuesday night thing. I remember getting home and I was like, wow, that was a lot of fun. That was a lot of like, we agreed upon so much, and it was fun. So then Wednesday was the first day of the conference, and I like that was maybe the James Belding, I think, had one of the very first presentations, if not the first presentation.
I think it was the second one. The first one I think was Jimmy.
Yes.
And yep. Jimmy kind of talked about like the need to scale and the roadmap a little bit. He also talked a little bit about like the incentive for miners and everything, and at different price ranges, and they kind of have like a statistic model of where we need to be to keep mining profitable for miners at certain levels.
Yeah.
I wish that gets released soon, because there was a lot of numbers on those slides that I didn't jot down, but I kind of want to see them now, because it was interesting, and I think that might, reveal a lot towards the outside crypto market. Start realizing that the hash rate matters, and the people that think because of the halvings coming up that the price is just going to go up because of the halving, that's not necessarily true.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for those numbers to come out, though.
And someone even, I think there is a presentation where those numbers are on a slide. Like I could have sworn one of the presentations. If not, I know if you go back and listen to the audio of the Miners Summit in Bangkok, they brought up those exact things pretty much too. So if anyone is curious, but I'm sure all the videos will get released at some point from CoinGeek.
Yeah.
And yeah, well, so I guess then James Belding went, and obviously the tokenized protocol. We did a whole conversation with them, which everyone should check out. But before we even talk about what his presentation was about, I will just say I was actually amazed. Like they had a working demo on mainnet of them issuing tokens in Electron Cash, all with their tokenized protocol, which was really cool to see. And it was it's very robust, smart contracts. Like there's a lot going on there. I was actually very surprised at how full featured it was, and they were just like doing demos on the floor on mainnet, no problem, which is great. But yeah, I guess like just generally, one of the main points that he made in this presentation that's kind of stuck with me is that he said that Bitcoin has lost its opportunity to beat fintech at cash payments. I never really thought about that, but I think he's right. Like I think like the user experience now in the past 10 years, because we haven't scaled, there are a ton of apps where you can actually send money from my bank to your bank, like pretty much for free, if not for free, and relatively frictionless. And just unfortunately, like we lost the opportunity to have that as a selling point. So then like his whole point was like, but we can beat them at tokens and, I guess the general idea of being like a global ledger.
Yeah.
And that was, I guess, the whole theme of the conference, I felt like, was like thinking of Bitcoin as a global ledger for anyone to use and anyone to pay money to store data on, right?
I think it kind of set the tone for the week too, of like, thinking of Bitcoin not just as only a efficient payment system, but also this ledger that you referred to, this one global ledger where everything can be stored on securely, and within legal requirements as well. So that was one thing that he talked about a little bit, how to use clauses, pull clauses from different contracts and everything, how to use that. His presentation actually is up now on CoinGeek's website. So
yep.
You can,
we'll put a link.
Yeah, go check that out. But yeah, it really set the tone though for Bitcoin as the ledger for everything.
The ledger. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it just got bigger from there, didn't it? I mean, it was like, we've been writing these articles that it's like thinking big about Bitcoin, but that was maybe the other thing that I walked away from it from was like everyone was thinking like extremely big about everything, which I thought was just refreshing.
Right.
I guess.
Yeah.
There's so many people that are just thinking of it like super duper small. And the tokenized stuff, what I found most interesting, I guess, about his presentation too, was you mentioned the law piece. Like one of the things that he brought up, which no one talks about, is let's say you issue like a house, like a deed, right? Like a house deed on Bitcoin.
Yeah.
If someone loses their private key, does that mean that they now lose their house? And then the other question is if it forks. I thought that was funny. If it forks, do you own your house on both chains? You can sell your house on one chain.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like those kind of things, like when you really start thinking about the whole code is law type concept, it's pretty stupid.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think that's like what the impetus for him was. He thought about that and he was like, well, I think he was like really interested in the whole idea of like real estate contracts, and that probably like shatters your brain a little bit when you're like, well, wait a sec, how does this work if we accept this whole code as law thing? How does it work where there's a dispute? You know what I mean? How does it work where I lose my private key? How does it work where, like, do you really just throw a law out the window? And no, you don't.
Yeah.
You really can't.
Yeah.
And that's this is a little off topic, but that's kind of what's been so frustrating is that now, especially with the whole lawsuit thing that came up, which we said we weren't going to get into that, but we don't have to. But
yeah.
Like that's not the narrative. It's like the narrative is like Bitcoin SV is this government coin. That's what these like small group of people are trying to like, that's the narrative they're trying to push just because they accept that law exists. Because law exists now, Bitcoin SV is like a government
status.
It's a status conspiracy to take over Bitcoin.
I saw like someone tweeted something about that Bitcoin Cash now and Bitcoin SV we can now test the same.
It was Vin. Yeah.
We can test the same, like, was it protocol? They're like the same exact thing, even though they're not now. They're not the same thing anymore at the protocol. And also, well, he said that they're the same thing, but one's on the status and one's like the ANCAP side.
I'll pull it up. Yeah, it was so stupid. Oh my god, it was so stupid. It was. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I don't want to end up ripping on Vin for a couple of minutes here, but
one of the coolest things about the BCH BSV split is that people are going to get to see how two basically identical systems evolve when the dominant ideology of one is voluntarism and the other is statism. It's a libertarian's dream scenario. We'll create new free marketeers. Smiley face.
Well, We will see. We will see.
So stupid.
Yeah. But yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah. So I guess like moving on, right?
Kind of going from the ledger talk that James Belding talked about. Well, then I think is Stefan Nielsen from Unisat.
Yes. I was just thinking that.
Yeah, he came on right after, and again, go check out our interview with him, and check out the presentation once it's up. But he really talked about how blockchain and everything solves the problem of supply chain. It's a supply chain solution.
Yeah.
And kind of using that, a Unisat stands for Universal Source of Truth, and kind of working together on building like a complete supply chain solution for a business to track everything at each level, and cutting out a lot of these inefficiencies that they currently have, from all the way to from the consumer to the producer. And having that one come up after the Bitcoin as a ledger,
Yeah, just like thinking about that a lot more.
Yeah.
It's like taking it to like the natural conclusion of where it. Well, I think that what amazed me the most about his presentation was like I didn't realize people were actually working on that. Like I understood that it was like a theoretical thing, but their company has already essentially created a system where it's doing this for fish today, right? Like a school of fish in Norway.
Right.
They're pretty much already tracking this. They're tracking like facial recognition software for the fish to see if they're healthy, and like every step along the way, it's tracking that data, which is crazy, right? Obviously, it brings into the whole question of like MetaNet and all that other stuff that was announced. But if you just think about it logistically for supply chain, I think it was something like Walmart spends Walmart would be a good example if they have a supply chain needs. It was something like they spent 30 cents on something that can be done with Bitcoin for 1 cent, and probably cheaper, but just like think about that 30x savings. If you could build a solution, present it to Walmart and say, hey, you don't have to do anything, but I'll save you 30 times, 30 times less. It'll cost you 30 times less to do this exact same thing. Mm-hmm. They're going to do it, right?
Yeah.
So everyone.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say everyone goes like if you abstract away this idea of like, okay, I have to now sell you on Bitcoin, like remove that concept, but instead sell people on, I'll let you use this ledger that provides you this benefit for this cost. So like, and this is something that I think like Craig was talking about, of like the onboarding problem for businesses can be solved by saying, you're never even going to know you're dealing with Bitcoin. I'm going to sell you this ledger that gives you immutability. It gives you a source of truth that can't be changed, and it'll cost you this much, right? Mm-hmm. And by the way, that amount that it'll cost you is 30 times less than what you're paying now for something that can be changed, that isn't necessarily a global source of truth and doesn't have all these other benefits, right? So, like we always talk about the onboarding problem. The onboarding problem for users is one thing, but the onboarding problem for businesses is really quite simple. Where if you just have miners saying, "Hey, our chain, our chain has 128 meg blocks. I will reserve for you 20 megs every 10 minutes to perform these daily tasks, and that'll cost you this much money." That's another viable business solution, right? Mm-hmm. So for supply chain, there's boundless opportunity. And again, I would recommend, like you said, the interview with Stefan Nielsen, but then also his presentation. His presentation was great, and it just kind of like, again, made you think big about the whole thing.
Right.
I'm looking forward to what they're doing. Yeah.
Yeah. And one thing that came kind of full circle for me was the fact that, like when we had our discussion, I think it was on Friday or Thursday, one thing that came full circle for me was that everyone's thinking about this the wrong way. Everyone sees blockchain as, there's a lot of companies out there that are like, oh yeah, blockchain solves a lot of supply chain issues, but they're thinking about it the wrong way in terms that they're having these teams go out and build their private blockchains. And that doesn't necessarily provide that much benefit for you if you're the only chain and it's all private done on your own chain when there's other companies doing private chains on their own. Now,
Yes.
the benefit that you gain from having it on all one chain is you gain that source, the sources of other information as well. So for me, that was kind of one thing that kind of came full circle is, the whole crypto space has been kind of thinking about this the wrong way in terms of that we're going to have all these different blockchains, but in order to actually benefit from blockchain, it all has to be done on one, so you can have that, universal source of truth that their company is kind of
muted.
That their company's proclaiming, So for me, that was like the one big takeaway that I had from this is that everyone's thinking about the wrong way, and everyone needs to think about one chain and scale at that was a big thing too, is we need to scale. And
there's not going to be like one serious institution that does anything with this until it's capable of much bigger. Yeah.
Right. Because you think about 128 megabytes, that's nothing. If we're talking about supply chain of
and it's such a paradigm shift. It's such a paradigm shift of like ABC isn't even increasing the block size in May. They aren't even increasing the block size in May. Like there's such a paradigm shift of like we've been at 1 meg for so freaking long that the idea of increasing 128x is so big to us, and yet it means so little to like the grand scheme of things.
Right. Yeah.
But again, best part about that whole being there was everyone just agreed enough is enough. Like let's stop messing around. And the other thing I'll say about that, what I really liked about the whole week, I met so many people that worked for nChain that you will never ever hear about on the internet. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And to hear what they were talking about and what they were working on, their criticisms of some of the stuff that had been floated around, I was just like, whoa. And I was like, and my first thought was just like, come on, you gotta get out there on social media. Like you gotta make people realize how stupid they're being. But that's just not what it's. They have a job to do. They do their job, and then ultimately social media doesn't matter. And like that's true, right? None of that actually matters. And so I guess I will just say like, I wish. The problem with Bitcoin is that we're so governed by all this crap of like social media. But when you actually look at like what the people who are very highly qualified to work on this stuff are doing behind the scenes, it's kind of remarkable. And I know that's very vague, and I know like that doesn't make it for, but just if any of those people are listening, I had great conversations with quite a few of them, and it was very enlightening, and it makes me feel good that like their goal is the same thing. Like they're just like, look, we think Bitcoin works, we want it to work, and we just want to, a lot of them were actually frustrated that SV had to exist. That's the other part of it. They're all working on all these other projects, and with the expectation that eventually we'll just get to SV, or we'll get to the protocol, and it's done, and then they can work on their projects. And instead, because developers like, a 3-letter developer group decides to just like arbitrarily make changes and whatever. So moving on, whatever. Thursday, let's just move on to, I mean, really, I would like to just talk about MetaNet, right? There were so many other presentations, great presentations. I'll give a call out because we also had a good conversation with Daniel Lipschitz. Awesome. I thought he gave, if you can find it on CoinGeek's channel eventually, it's not there today because I looked for it today because I wanted to send it to someone. I thought he gave one of the best like introductory to Bitcoin presentations I've seen probably ever. I think it like Roger has good ones, but this presentation, I thought it hit the nail on the head, like why we need Bitcoin, why it's important. Like I will send it to everybody. I guarantee I will send it to everybody that doesn't know anything about Bitcoin, because I think it captured it all perfectly. And then the other thing is that his payment processor or
insurance.
Zero Conf. He says it's not insurance, but
well,
pretty much right. Zero Conf insurance type system. I don't know why no one knows about that. I didn't know about it. So Gap 600. If you're looking for a Zero Conf insurance service instead of making unnecessary stupid changes to the protocol, then check out Daniel's service. But I liked the presentation, and obviously there's so many other presentations that were good. But this whole idea of a global ledger has like one final conclusion, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where everything we do is on the immutable global ledger, and this gets into a lot of like philosophical questions, I guess, about like, is that a good thing to do? Can you imagine if everything we did was stored forever? Like Black Mirror, right? And have you watched Black Mirror?
Yeah. Are you talking about the social episode or?
So there's the nose dive. We should talk about that in a sec. But there's the general concept. I think they do it in a few episodes where like the people have like the eye implants where they can everything's recorded through their eyes and they can run back, right? And they can see everything that's recorded, right? And so people point to like, well, if we're going to put everything on the blockchain, then that's what the inevitable future is. This dystopian nature of like all the data exists. And, but what I'm starting to like understand, I guess, and what's exciting me so much about this idea of Bitcoin at scale and MetaNet and whoever else, which MetaNet is just Bitcoin at scale. Let's be honest. That's all it is. Like, it's a cool name, but if you really think about it, MetaNet is just like Bitcoin being used for everything, which it's great. And I like that there's a name for it and it sounds like the internet. I think it's a selling point, but, like to anyone that's thought about every single thing running on Bitcoin, that's all MetaNet is. And we can talk about that further. But what I think, what was mind blowing for me in the conversations that I was having, and then when we talked with Craig, this was kind of the conclusion that you draw, is like today, everything we do is stored on a server somewhere. The NSA stores all the information on a server somewhere. Google has servers that stores all the information. Amazon, if anything touches Amazon's web services, that stores it on a server, right? And the problem is that we all think that that's going to change. That at some point, that's not going to be true. But the reality of it is that all of our data already lives on servers somewhere, and it will live perpetually until someone deletes the disks that are storing the data, right? But there's really no reason to delete data. If I'm a government, for example, like the NSA, and I have an unlimited budget, essentially, because I print money at will, then I can store hundreds of thousands of disks that just I keep making backups. All the data can live forever and ever, right? But the difference is that I'm not in control of the data. So the data, it may be encrypted. Sure, the data may be encrypted. That's fine. But I don't know that there's a backdoor to the encryption services I'm using. Maybe I'm using like Signal, for example, and I'm trusting that Signal's encryption is good. I think Signal is open source. So that might not be the best at it, but just as an example. The point being, all the data is now controlled by trusted third parties, where I have to trust two things. Number one, that the encryption is good, which for the most part, you can probably assume it's good. But on the other hand, that the data itself exists. I'm having to trust this third party to not leak the data. I almost said something that I shouldn't say, but for every company, when I Twitter DM people, right, that's encrypted so far as like I'm using HTTPS, but still the data lives on Twitter servers, and any asshole Twitter employee has access to that, right? That's the same case with every Google message I send. Google has access on Hangouts to the messages. I'm trusting that they're not breaching some kind of they're not breaching that trust that I have with them, but of course there's no guarantee. So I know I'm kind of repeating myself, but to drive that point home, the future of big data is inevitable. The entire idea that you and I aren't, that our children and our grandchildren aren't going to have every little thing recorded about them. There's probably going to be cameras everywhere. Let's be honest, right?
Like
probably,
cameras are already everywhere anyway.
They are. Yeah, they're in our pockets. So they're pretty much are. But look at like China, right? The idea of like China and that's the world that they're going to live in. And we are living in some capacity, right?
And if anyone thinks that it's going to stop anytime soon, just think about the like past 10 years and think about the technology advances that we've had in the past. Well, not even 10 years, 5 years, I would say.
Yeah.
Like Apple Watches, everything. Like data is growing at an exponential rate, and it's dangerous of where we're heading. And I think, yeah, you're explaining the idea of having this vulnerability of a third party, especially the more and more data that we start to grow with. It becomes dangerous, you know.
And there's undeniable benefits, right? There's undeniable benefits of having all this data, right?
Right.
Like
health benefits.
And that's a perfect example, right? So, because if you just take the beginning of like, I think Craig's first presentation he gave, he was talking about like sensors in your hands, right? To measure your like blood temperature and your heart rate and all sort of stuff. Mm-hmm. And all I was thinking like, oh my God, that sounds so dystopian. And I think to anyone, even that was watching that, still is like, what? Like, there's probably a lot of people like, I'm not comfortable with that. I'm not comfortable with this idea of like sensors everywhere. While there's probably benefits, of course there's benefits to having a sensor monitor my heart rate, my cholesterol, right, all this other stuff daily. There's undeniable benefits to that. In the traditional sense, in the data structures that we're used to, there relies some kind of third party to analyze the data, to monitor the data, to in some capacity store the data if it's on a cloud,
mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
And to drive it home one more time, like the iCloud leaks, right? Like the celebrities that have their pictures leaked from using iCloud, right? Mm-hmm. This is a problem that is not going to go away. But there's also undeniable benefits of using the cloud, right? Of having your data backed up to the cloud. So what like struck home for me was when you think about, okay, so big data inevitable, right? But then there's also the undeniable benefits of having all the data there. If you use the blockchain, let's assume there's one global blockchain that you can use, and all the data gets stored there. And we're not saying, like, we're saying data. Like, that's why Craig's presentation started with like, hey, you used to be able to push 4 gigs to a transaction, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're talking real data. Like, we're talking movies, TV shows. I'm going to push it into a transaction. It's going to be on the ledger forever. When you start thinking about, okay, well, maybe I will have those blood sensors, right? And I'm gonna merge my body with machine, and I'm gonna store all this data about myself. As for example, like 23andMe, right? 23andMe, the genetic processing, like that, that really creepy company that does genetic sequencing.
Yeah, I don't know if
they sell that data. They sell that data to advertisers, or not advertisers. They sell, I guess advertisers. Yeah, today they sell that data. So imagine if you could just remove that process of, okay, well, I want my genome sequenced, but I want to make sure I'm the only person who will ever be able to see the results. And that's exactly what we're talking about. We're talking about like the only possible way that's true is Bitcoin, where you have this peer-to-peer system where data is encrypted and it's accessible only to me and whoever I give the keys to. Mm-hmm. And you can do that in a trustless manner. You can do computation in a trustless manner. And this isn't something new that Craig's been talking about. It was probably the first time a lot of people had heard it, but he had talked a while back about how I could use I could use Amazon's computing services, but Amazon would never know what I'm actually computing, which isn't true today. The possibilities become really endless where you start thinking about that in that manner of like, okay, so I can do all of this. I can leverage the benefits of big data and the benefits of a global ledger, but I don't have to rely on the trust that a third party isn't going to use my data, leak my data, or, well, I guess those are the two big ones, right?
Yeah.
Or get hacked, I guess, right? There's no security vulnerability because no one's going to hack Bitcoin. that's the whole security model of Bitcoin, that can't really be hacked, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the possibilities of that are just endless, right? And so it's been very hard not to just talk about this to everybody that since coming back from the conference. And then there's the obvious benefits of like IP to IP. Craig's whole thing about IP to IP, where I can have my entire home connected IP to IP, interacting with the blockchain. Like the possibilities here are really endless, right? But the philosophical benefit of like I can have data that lives forever, that's immutable, and that is mine. You know what I mean? And it's whoever I give access to. So there's the control aspect of you are in complete control because you can either give it away for free, you can charge people money for it. I said this to like I said this. It's like we've taken this inevitable dystopia and turned it into something that empowers the individual. You know what I mean? And I've done nothing. So I said we. Yeah. I've done nothing. Yeah. But that is the inevitable conclusion if this stuff works out, which is very exciting.
I think the timing of this is ironic too, that it's coming about now. There was talk about BlackNet. Well, I mean MetaNet. Gotta say MetaNet now, but right. This idea of BlackNet was kind of around back in the 2000s already.
Before that, it was like 93, I think, was the first time.
93? Yeah. So it was already talked about, but I think like at the time though, the general public didn't really see this as a concern just yet. And I think now, like in current day, this is starting to become like a bigger concern. And I would almost say that it's almost come to the point where most of the people have come to the realization that there is this vulnerability of this hack, and they've almost come to the settlement of it. That's that. And, I gained so much benefit by using these platforms where I don't even care anymore. And they don't even care without worrying about the implications that could cause later on. Yeah. And it's becoming more of a problem like in today. You talk about elections, violating people's privacy, these hacks of personal information, personal health information going out. It's an interesting time for this to come up now. And it's almost like now it's almost necessary that we need something like this versus before, And
the timing, in a way, is like when Bitcoin correlated with the 08 crash, it feels like this is correlating with all of the like dystopian, in a way, like it's there's like that one guy. There's so many actual examples of this in the past week, but people getting like deleted from YouTube, all of their videos getting deleted from YouTube. Which, should they have a local copy? Sure, but imagine if you remove the necessity. And again, you're just trusting that YouTube isn't going to delete all your data. You know what I mean? Right. They're really, and then the demonetization, obviously, is something that Bitcoin solves. There's so many people getting demonetized from like Patreon and YouTube ads and all that other stuff, but the solutions are needed, like right now, like very much so. And I think people are starting to see the failures of companies like Facebook and even Google. So there's so much more excitement about the whole concept. And I think we're going to keep probably digging into that in the future, but I think I think it's important to drive that home. I don't think people, when you really think about the possibility here, and you start thinking about how dangerous the idea is to certain like people, or not even dangerous, revolutionary. Because even Craig brought up an example like Google. If Google switched from an advertisement-based model of selling your data to just charging you pennies for searches over like a week span, they would make more money, and it would be a better experience for us. You know what I mean? So Yeah, I mean, the conversation could go on forever about all this stuff, and we will. We'll have more conversations about it, obviously.
I'm sure
but that's why
people are probably listening to this have no idea like how the hell this even works. And to be honest, like I don't even know how the hell it works yet. But I've been doing some research into like the Mandela network, how the immutability of the network, how that's going to play a big factor in this. And
the big thing is the searchability. There's obviously the immutability factor where like, okay, now you have a global source of truth and it can't be changed. That changes a lot of things, but the fact that data can be easily searched when you have this gigantic ledger, how do you like that's the problem in the internet, right? There's actually a big problem in the internet of like there's like videos that I want to find so bad, and I know that somewhere a copy of this video exists, but I don't know how to get it. And let's say I wanted to torrent the video. I'm hoping that the peer that has the torrent is online somewhere and they're seeding it, and in 99% of the time they're not. Like this, these problems are solved, I guess, is the thing. And now you have this ability to find that data really easily. It exists, so you have the immutability factor that you talked about, but the searchability of like, I want this, here it is, I can find this very easily. That's very important for a network too. I mean, yeah, but to echo your point, hopefully what we're going to see, I guess our goal is to we're Bitcoin and beyond. So what is the beyond here? And the beyond is really like taking this, abstracting away further from peer-to-peer cash, and the peer-to-peer cash enables all these other use cases, but helping people to understand like, well, hang on, how do you put a web page in the blockchain? How about you? So when you start talking about like everything running on Bitcoin, it's not. It literally means everything running on top of Bitcoin. The internet as we know it changes. So hopefully our goal is to help people understand that, right? Yeah, MetaNet. I want to just briefly, since we have a little bit of time left, we should touch on this because obviously it's important. People are going to want to know about it. So BSV, BCH, like we got to touch on this. Like you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We are SV focused now, and the reasons for that are quite really straightforward. But we want to try Bitcoin as it was created. We want to see if that works. Yeah. I would like to see if that works. I don't want to I really, 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 really don't care about CTOR. I really don't care about DataSig Verify. And then the other piece of it is, I mean, the stuff they're working on now, dude, it's just like, it's experimentation for experimentation's sake. It's just so ridiculous with this avalanche crap, with Emin freaking Gunsires crap. Right. It's just like, I don't, fine. I wish them luck. Congrats, whatever. But I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in Bitcoin. And SV is the closest Bitcoin. What we're going to do next week, hopefully, maybe next week, maybe the week after, we're going to step through the history of Bitcoin. And I mean like the history from, okay, Bitcoin is created, the code is released. From then on, how many things were stripped away from it, little by little, how many things were added to it, and walk through all of that to now bring us back to SV. And this is going to be a very valuable, I think, thing to do. And help people understand, like, all we are doing is putting Bitcoin back to the way it was. That's it.
Right. And that's my biggest thing about SV. This is why I chose SV, is because I just want a stable network. Like, I really don't want all this fork split crap, like, over and over again. And if you look at the experimentation that's going on over in ABC right now, it's bound to split again at some point.
Of course.
And that's a scary thing. That is a very scary thing. I mean, look at the way the market's been doing during this whole split here. It's if you're talking about people's money here, we're talking about a global peer-to-peer system. if there's developers arguing about what should happen on the blockchain, and that's going to throw the world economy into a collapse, failure, and split, and everyone in the world's going to have to choose sides and everything, that just sounds like a disastrous situation. I just want a stable network, and that's why I'm so happy that, we're going to get a Bitcoin back to where it was and just move on. And we can start debating other crap. We can debate other things about how things should be done on top of it. But yeah.
And the best part about that is we can debate that on the open market where better solutions are chosen. And like Unwriter, that was Unwriter came out with that piece that I think that Tuesday or Monday of CoinGeek week, and he nailed it. I mean, honestly, if you want my opinion on this whole fork, just read his article. It was beautiful. It was perfect. And that's the one thing I will say is, like, throughout the whole fork, every business and project that I care about chose SV. Really. There's very little that on the BCH side that I'm actually trying to think of one project that I will miss. That's a little rude, but I honestly can't think of one. I'm pretty sure every project that I cared about and is on the SV side. Really. Now, they might have developers that are working on protocol weird crap, which is cool. Fine. Awesome. Go for it. Looking forward to seeing their results. But not interested.
And the biggest thing too about this is explaining this to someone that's not as involved. This is a nightmare of a situation. Yeah. Like I've been kind of going with the approach of so when Cash and Core split, like, I feel like I got super heated into it, and I explained everything, and I tried to explain all the details of the difference between the two. With this, I'm just so sick of having to go through that route again. I'm just kind of going with, look, Bitcoin SV is trying to stabilize the network. That's something that needs to happen. Like, this situation of splitting from Core to Cash to SV now, that needs to stop, because that's not going to make any progress. I can tell you right now that the SV route is going to stabilize, and that's really all you need to know. If you're interested in all these other things, you can go check them out for yourself. But SV is going to stop this forking crap. And that's kind of the approach I've been going with. Because I used to get so heated with the Cash Core debate, and I would just rant for an hour to people that don't even understand the stuff either. They're like, geez, like, I don't really care about all this stuff. So that's why in this, I'm going with a different approach in this scenario and just telling them what they need to know about SV, and that's that.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I want to take this show and moving forward, is, we'll talk about the history of how SV came to be, some of the differences, but I think, Bitcoin and beyond, what we need to do on the show is just focus on SV and the implications of, MetaNet and everything, and the educational aspect of what Bitcoin really truly is.
And that's the thing, right? It's just, I think what we need to do on just the whole, on the SV side, is like move on. Like, let's just move on. I would love to criticize all the BCH stuff, but like
it comes easy sometimes too. Yeah, it's easy to fall in that trap.
Well, they should just do it. They should just. I mean, that's the thing. Like, fine, go for it. Like, there's nothing wrong with multiple forks. I will put on the. I'll put on the last disclaimer. We had to mention this so that it's on record, even though people will still ignore that we're saying it. We had been talking about the longest chain. And now everyone's like, "Oh, you're not following the longest chain," and blah blah blah. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it's 8,000 things there, but the first one obviously is like, I just don't care about talking about it because it just sounds like whatever. But the checkpoints. I mean, we're just gonna ignore the fact that a centralized group of developers colluded with exchanges to govern the chain, and everyone's just cool with that. And so
we'll talk about that next week, I think, on the history channel.
Yeah. So just the whole longest chain thing. It's just like, well, ABC abandoned Nakamoto consensus the instant the fork happened. So if you're gonna now, the same people that told us that incompatible rule sets don't apply with Nakamoto consensus, blah blah, are the same ones now like bitching. But like the longest chain went out the window the minute they abandoned Nakamoto consensus. So that's all I'll say on that. But then the last thing that I think we should just mention just about the whole thing is like move on, BCH done. But I think what our goal for this moving forward is going to be like the SV chain. So this is where the one thing I thought was really beneficial of now there being 3 Bitcoins. Is it actually puts into question what is Bitcoin for each one. Like the question becomes more potent for each one. When there's just 2, when there's just Bitcoin Cash and BTC, it's much easier for one side to be like, oh, those guys are just crazy and stupid, right? When there's 3 viable contenders for the name, I think it actually puts each one under the microscope of like which one is Bitcoin. And I think that's actually where we have the advantage, because all that SV is just pure, unadulterated Bitcoin, right? And so I think that is our benefit moving forward, whereas no other chain can say that. SegWit, replaced by Fee, Lightning Network, all that stuff is arguing that Bitcoin is broken and we have to do it a certain way, or Satoshi was wrong, we have to do it a certain way. The BCH side is on a similar vein. They're saying the scripting language wasn't complete enough. We need data to verify. And then now with their changes to ZeroConf and adding in Avalanche and pre-consensus, all this stuff, it's that the governance model doesn't work to prevent double spending, which was the entire point of the white paper, was to prevent double spending. So we are the only claim to fame that Bitcoin works. And I think that we should run with that. And we will. And the best part about all this, Corey, is I don't think BTC is making a comeback anytime soon. I don't think BCH is going to make a comeback anytime soon. I don't think, I think we're in this point now where it's all fundamentals and like, what are you doing to create a more robust ecosystem? And I believe only one chain has that momentum of actually building something that will bring businesses and users on board.
Right. And not to talk about price or anything, this isn't financial advice or anything. I have to give the disclaimer. But this bear market, though, is actually, I think, very, very healthy for everyone outside of the cryptocurrency space, inside the cryptocurrency space, because it's challenging everyone to think about this instead of being blinded by this this cascade of all the prices just skyrocketing through the roof. I mean, it really, I think, all those that crazy bull market that we had completely blinded people to like what is the actual product here. And this is kind of nice because it's almost like an enlightening, like now people really have to put into question what this stuff is, what they're investing in, I guess they want to call it investing. So I think this is really good. A lot of people hate it. A lot of people hate the bear market. It sucks, losing a lot of money, but for the long term, I think it's really, really healthy. And it's going to be nice to see everything kind of grow up finally now. Absolutely. Yeah.
So there we are. We're at an hour. I know we kind of ranted and raved there, but it was good. So I guess just to wrap it up, I mean, I'm hyped. The whole week was awesome. I encourage everyone to go to the next one in May because it was seriously like, I mean, Corey, it was fun, right? I mean, it was just fun to be surrounded by all those people and people focus on getting businesses to actually take this stuff seriously. It was so nice. So
that was one big takeaway was the business focus. Like no one really cares if crypto Joe is gonna invest in this stuff or not. Like, all the talk was about bringing businesses on board to this.
Oh yeah.
And not just like as the investment aspect of it, like bringing them on board in terms of like using this as a tool for logistics and operations for their business.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's Bitcoin and beyond. So
very
good.
Right.
Yeah.
We will be, so I guess just for anyone listening, nothing's changed for us, just our name.
Yeah.
No more tickers. I guess, again, anyone wants to make us a logo, let us know. That'd be tight. And yeah, we'll be our goal is to focus on education. So
yeah,
we don't have to worry about telling people why changes are bad, because there's not going to be any more changes. We're just going to have Bitcoin. So
hell yeah.
Very good. So we're just going to focus on education, adoption, all that kind of stuff, and very good.
All right. Bitcoin and beyond. Out.
We have a little jingle.